Today is an episode that I have been looking forward to for a while. We talked about doing this, as you can see right now, with Robert Martinez, RBest311, and George Collins. George Collins, that's his handle, Super creative.
BD Snare.
BD Snare. Sorry, there it is. My bad. Apologies. We just saw them throughout the summer at some shows and then at finals and said we should hang out and just talk about your all's travels and journeys and the state of the activity. And just, we were on your all's podcast a while ago and figured, why don't have you guys on now? And then we'll talk about the summer and whatever the hell else comes up. So before we jump in, welcome everyone to the Aged Out Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Fantini, and with me as always is
Evan Worrell.
And of course, comment, like, subscribe, share the podcast with anyone you think would appreciate it. Facebook, Instagram, give us a follow over there. Patreon.com or the join button on YouTube if you want to support us financially, or if you want to grab a logo shirt or a logo sticker to support us that way, agedoutpodcast.com. I think Evan and George are both wearing the shirt right now. Robert, I'm disappointed.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me go run and touch the. Let me go run and grab a leaf, and I'll be right back.
I'm not
old
wearing
school.
it.
That's an old school reference, you know.
Oh, I've been told to do that before. But lastly, the Aged Out Fundamentals playlist. We cannot impress this upon you as enough. They will build chops. They will build consistency. We're actually going to be adding 2 new ones soon: Paradiddle Diddle and Puttada. Over the next week or two, I'm waiting on the MP3 files to come in from a buddy of ours who makes them for us. I think my favorite comment so far on one of them, we do know you all are playing to those things. We can see the real-time views on those videos, so good for the people that are actually doing it. But somebody commented and they said, if you play to all 5 of these in a row, your hands will feel invincible. And that it is really true. Your hands feel great. So, all right, enough shilling our extra content. George, Robert, how was your summer?
It was great. What the sorry about that. I was like,
we're off to an amazing start.
Yeah, we're really getting
it's like
hot start.
Is George gonna talk? Am I gonna talk? Other than a little illness in the Midwest, it's been great. And let's not call this the state of judging, because we had one. Remember, we had one a couple years ago, and you titled that the state, and it just turned into.
It turned into quite the discussion topic on the Drum Core Coffee Shop Facebook page.
That was fun.
Yeah. But back to what we're talking about. It was a great summer, other than being sick for a little stretch. And I'll turn it over to George. Go ahead, George.
And by the way, Rob will never admit to being sick. He was sniffling and coughing.
He's one of those people.
Dude, are you? Because we're sharing a hotel room. We're riding in the car together and stuff like that. I'm like, are you sick? He's like, no.
It's just allergies, right? Just allergies.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just just a tickle in my throat.
Yeah. Nothing major.
The Ohio pollen.
I have to ask though, because I just noticed this. Is that a sorting hat behind you on top of that drum?
Indeed, it is. And let me tell you this. I like here. Let me grab it. I like to take this around, and I'll put it on people that play drums head, and it'll tell you what corps you should march or what winter drum line you should be in.
What instrument you should play?
Hold on. Go home. See?
I was going to say it probably tells people to march Velvet Nights a lot, but
not anymore. Not anymore. Yeah.
We've talked about it and stuff before, but you guys have grown into your own kind of event. People are happy to see you at the shows. That's interesting. When I see you guys in the lot, right? It seems like groups are very eager to have you come in and be a part of their experience, film the kids. Do you guys get that vibe when you're going to the shows, going to the lots?
Go ahead, Rob.
For me, it's not really. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I'm just trying not to be a nuisance more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I always want to be hat in my hand. Is it okay? Except for one time, I guess I didn't ask. And it was never mind. Forget, we won't even talk about it. But yeah, no, there's for the most part, I think everybody's there happy to see us. I don't know.
I was actually thinking recently about this question. I often when I think about stuff, I come at it from an odd place. But I noticed a little bit of what you just alluded to, right? Which is kind of how we're received whenever we show up someplace. And there is something about it that feels different. Like people treat us like we're not just, even though we're just coming up to basically film a lot, right? Or film a rehearsal, we do get treated a little bit differently. And in my mind, I was a little bit like, why? You know? I think that people can tell where we're coming from, right? Like what our intention is, why we're doing this. Maybe that can be felt through the content somehow. But we love it because, you know, in doing this, we've really sort of felt that community thing that, you know, that we all know and love from, you know, because this activity is pretty small when you think about it. And
that's an understatement.
And yeah, and it's just like how connected we all are to each other, you know, and how encouraging and like supportive we all are to each other. That's really great. So I think that thing is something that we really feel.
I think it's a different vibe than like when Vic Firth or Evans or Innovative or whoever's in the lot. Like obviously they're there to get the content to promote and market their products. Versus like you guys or Marching Vlogs or Drumline AV or 5 is 1, or of course we can talk about the plethora of channels that there are later.
Yeah, I want to get to that at some point.
But you know, like you guys are there to document, like, you know, be historians of the activity, so to speak. And I think that comes across. I know that you guys have talked about that, like, you know, wish that you had this type of content for your era. And I do too, because then we'd probably get rid of some of the, like, back in my day, it's like, well, if it was in 4K, you might
hear all those ticks, and you weren't as great as you probably say you were. So,
But getting back to what you're saying, I also like to think that we've earned some trust from the groups that we go and
for sure
and ask, you know, because I hope they look at our content and enjoy it, not like
I'm sure they do
throw up the dirt.
Yeah,
they remember like Go ahead.
No, I was just saying they have to know at this point with your all's track record, and your all's channels are known. They've met you before throughout you all filming throughout the seasons. They have to know you're, one, going to be respectful, and 2, you're not going to get in anyone's way. They know you're both aware of where I shouldn't stand there and try to get up close in that. I've done my homework a little bit. They know, but I'm sure they do have to deal with people that try to film and are obtrusive just to try to get the shot or whatever. But they have to trust you guys. There's no doubt in my mind at this point.
Yeah. Sometimes they tell us about like other people that have showed up and just like jumped in there without asking, or you know.
Yeah.
But and funny enough though, we still do have, we sort of double check always with what, you know, because sometimes it's like we show up and we can tell that they're having a bad day, like something happened or something. So even with our, you know, close friends and stuff like that are teaching places, we will talk. Like when we rolled up to Blue Coats on finals day, right? We had this long talk with Roger beforehand about like what's cool, what's not cool, you know, and just to make sure because obviously they were, you know, trying to win.
Right.
Yeah.
On the most, and this was like their final, they were trying to put those final, you know, touches on the show. So we really, really wanted to make sure that we weren't a distraction, you know? So I think coming at it with that level of respect, you know, and then also like, I still go back to like, Jared Andrews told me a couple of years ago, he's like, you guys always point the camera where we as an audience want the camera to be pointed. You know,
there's something to be said for that, man.
Yeah.
I can't always say the same for the flow stream. They get better each year, but
it has been improving.
Every now and then it's like snare drum solo, rifle toss, and I'm like, all right.
But
what are we
you know
doing
what? I would hate to do that. I would hate to be like.
It'd be stressful.
As much stuff. I was gonna say crap, but as much stuff as people give them, you know.
I love FloMarching.
Dude, it's hard. Yeah, same.
Oh yeah.
Same.
The product that they produce for what it costs is like insane to me.
Yeah.
And like,
let's be honest. If it goes away, who wants to jump in there?
That's literally what I was about to say.
Yes.
It's like
And they're really
them,
like,
how are we going to watch any of this? No one else.
They're
is
really
do it.
the only company that can do it, in my opinion, because it's not just FloMarching. You know, it's Flow Sports. They have this infrastructure. They have other activities that are niche that they already kind of get into those realm and dive into it.
Yeah.
So like if it does go away, like
We're kind of screwed.
Um,
It honestly
then-
is ESPN 8 the Ocho.
And
Like,
then
that's
you
what
know
it
the
is.
Ocho, yeah. And then for whatever company, let's say, wants to do it, here, come and film us, and then all these people are going to take your videos and pirate them up on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know,
true.
yeah. I'm sorry,
Um,
not the whatever show. You know.
Yeah. Not the Blue Coats 2024.
Yeah.
Not Carolina Crown 2022. Yep. They're all over the place.
Definitely not. You know.
All the cake.
How does just the word not fool the algorithm? Like, it doesn't actually fool it, does it? Obviously, I've never tried it.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
does it actually do anything? It's somebody
Well,
let us know if you know in the comments.
I imagine, I wonder if the sort of policy for number one, each core, and number two, FloMarching in general, how strenuously they police it, right? Police that stuff. I wonder if that has changed.
We've
'cause
gotten
usually
flagged
it's-
on Flow videos before on our reactions.
Usually it's automatic, right?
Yeah.
Usually it is
Yep.
like an automatic thing.
We've reacted to 2 Flow videos. Original videos were Flow videos. We've reacted to 2, and the automated system, when it checks your video on upload, flagged it. And so we appealed it, and we won both cases in YouTube's fair use policy. So it worked out. But yeah, I would think it would
But
flag
we're
it
also
immediately.
not ripping straight shows. So.
True. We're talking, we're pausing, we're rewinding, we're adding content to the viewing experience that you can't. That's the argument we made, and it worked. So we add info you can't get from their video.
One time, I know some of the Flow guys just from being in the lot,
Right.
and they're like, hey, can you send us audio? Because my audio didn't record. So I sent them the audio.
Yeah.
Then I post my video, and then I get copyrighted by Flow.
What the
Yeah,
hell?
that's funny.
No, but it's cool. I just, I messaged, hey, they copyrighted me. Can you take care of that? And then they fixed it. But I just thought that was funny,
Yeah, they've been cool. They've been cool about
Speaking
it. Speaking
of like audio and like you guys documenting and filming, did either of you? I'll start with you, George. Did either of you have like any audio or video editing prior to like doing this? Like,
Completely on the fly. Like if you go back to my earliest videos,
oh, I
Don't
did.
tell them the secrets.
We
Don't
have.
tell them the secrets. Just kidding.
but here's the interesting thing. So like early on, it was just run and gun, right? It was very much like I wanted to be the first one to post a video.
Sounds like
But I
us.
bought like a little microphone for my phone, right? And so that was all fine. Now, I would edit an iMovie like in my car, and then I would upload it as I was driving home
or hotel room.
or hotel room. But the day that I broke the seal and like, okay, I'm going to get a sound recorder so that it can stay stationary. Then all of a sudden I realized, oh wait, iPhone video kind of flexes with regards to like the frame rate that it uses.
Yep.
So the audio gets off. And so for the longest time I had to manually like I had to cut the audio and then like kind of stretch it or whatever. But then when I made the leap to actually using an actual camera, then that problem went away because the frame rate stayed. But everything's been learned along the way. It's very much trial and error, and my compulsion to try to make it sound good. That is like it's its own category of like obsession for me, which I'm still trying to figure out, like how to make it sound the way it actually sounds live. But at the very least, making it sound good.
I remember I was listening to you talk about that on your all's recent episode that you did with Josh Brickey, and you're like, man, I don't feel like I'm gonna, like you talked about the audio, I'm not gonna be able to translate like what I'm experiencing live through this to the audience on the internet. But
It's hard.
For those that can't be there, that extra step in like upgrading your audio is definitely well received, at least when I'm using my headphones listening on YouTube.
It's just a more realistic representation, because you and I, Evan, were having this debate or this discussion on the way home from finals this year of how clean really were we 15 years ago? Like, we have memories, we know we were good, but it's like there is one moment specifically. Obviously, the audio recording video wasn't as great, even in 2012, my age out summer. There's one moment in like our fourth chart I remember vividly in the finals lot. There's one roll that wasn't balanced, and like it was on our end of the snare line. It might have been me, I don't fucking remember, but who knows. But it was it wasn't perfectly balanced. Rhythmically it was clean, so when you watch the video it sounds great. But I remember the rep ended and like me, Taha, and Joe Woody kind of were like, whoops, let's forget that happened and then move on to the next chunk. But like we watched the video later and it's like, oh, you can't even tell. You do lose that in translation if you're not striving for perfection in the depiction of the moment into the video medium like you're talking about. And it's like, how clean really was Cadets 05? Or how clean really was Group X?
At this, the one thing that I would like people in the audience to consider, because I think we talked about this, on our podcast, but so many people use those videos as like evidence.
Yeah.
Like this is going, oh no, that wasn't that clean, or this was fuzzy. And then they go, see, like I'm right. Like my opinion, it validates their opinion. And I just want everybody to stop a moment and go, where's the microphone?
Oh, dude.
Where is it? Yeah. Is it somebody just recording with their phone? Then they have to hold the phone up high, right? And you're getting all of this sort of GoPro top head, very plasticky sound off the snares.
Right.
Is it over on the side? Are there multiple videos of that same moment? And have you checked them all out to sort of try to reconcile?
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, everybody just wants that little nugget of like, so that they can say what they want to say, right?
Yeah.
That they are, they're sort of, they're
which is always kind of like crazy too. Like we do our reactions every video, and it never fails, whether it's WGI or DCI. Like we're obviously basing just these shots in the dark off of YouTube videos that are in the lot. They're not even on the move. They're not on the field. Like we're not there in person, and we're like making rankings based off of just.
We watch the flow streams, but that's still lost. You lose stuff in translation through the mics of the flow stream too. Like you're
best guess possible, and like we're just like, all right, we're just gonna throw out some predictions.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
See what happens.
So you guys are armchair judges. Is that that's what you're telling me?
100%.
Yeah.
I will own that title completely.
Just know that both Rob and I currently, what we do is we use a sound recorder, stationary sound recorder, and we try to center it pretty much on the snares because they're the most sort of unforgiving if you go from side to side. And we try to keep them low. We try to keep them low so you're getting a little bit more bottom head sound and you're not getting that very plasticky, popcorny pop head sound. Our ears take both of those sounds and put them together, but there isn't a microphone out there currently that can do that. You're either hearing too much top head or you're hearing too much bottom head.
Sony, get on that. Figure it out.
Yeah. Rob? The one thing I'm looking at, I wanted to see something if it's the name I remember, but yeah, it's the one thing I would really like to get into doing, because I've heard it a couple times on YouTube and even TikTok videos. It's called, I want to say, spatial audio, like 8K audio.
Yeah.
And if you listen to it with headphones,
it sounds like
it's like scary. Yeah.
Dude, have you heard that one that like knocks and it's like?
Yes. That's what. Yeah.
It's insane.
It freaks you out.
Go look up like 8K audio on YouTube and put some good headphones on, and you'll trip out.
What's weird is I've steadily been editing our Blue Coats Finals Day rehearsal footage. And so my mic was up at the top of the stadium, right? And the next clip that that's going to go live like over the weekend or something. It's really weird because it's the one clip where you can hear comments from the box, like because it's quiet, because like it's just percussion with like the horns bopping. And the comments from the box, like it kind of sounds like to your right and like way over there. At least when I listen to it, it's a little disconcerting in the way you guys are talking about, where it's like, it's not just stereo, but it kind of sounds like actually where it was. So I don't know. Could just be my headphones, but I thought that was interesting.
I will point something out though. You're talking about centering. You try to center your mic to get the best perspective of the audio while you move around filming the video and stuff. Evan and I have talked about this on many old school reaction videos we've done. You lose that. If you're clean to the side, it's that whole thought. If you're clean off to the side as a snare line, that's how you know you're clean and balanced. If you can stand off to the side and it sounds great, you do lose that to figure out who's actually balanced. But I'll make that sacrifice for overall good quality. Are we wrong in that, by the way? Is that a legit thing? If you're clean standing to the side of a snare line, that's a true sign of balance and blend.
I think there's a lot that has to be said about that, because there's some lines, when I'm filming, sometimes I like to get the side down the line angle.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I hope that sounds good from up front. And then it does sound good from up front.
Yeah.
But there's other times when I've been on the side, I'm like, oh man, that was clean from the side. Yeah.
It's balance. Balance.
Yeah, excuse me for a
balance
second. I'll be
player
right
to player is what gives you that clean from the side.
Here's I've thought about this a lot, right? Here's the thing. Indoors, right, when nobody has scoops on, what you're saying really holds true, right?
Yeah.
Because how does the drum know which way you're facing?
Right.
If there's nothing that is forcing the sound a particular direction, I think it's when the scoops come on, right, that you get a little bit of that. You want it to be from the front. Basses are very directional. You know, like if you're down low, I lose a lot of bass sound. You literally have to be like, listen to Blue Code Show. Listen to the difference between like when the basses are on the risers, which are like only like 1.5 feet high, to when, they're behind and they're playing in basically into the back of the pit, right?
Right.
There's a massive difference in sound. Tenors naturally, with the way the drums are cut, have a little bit of that directional thing, but they're more forgiving because they're still using plastic heads. They're not using Kevlar, very unforgiving heads. So the problem is like every drum is different, right? So where we currently are in terms of where we decide to put the recorder, we feel like is the best compromise
for all parts, for all the moving parts.
I even like now to try to get more bass sound. I'll have my mic low for the benefit of the snares, but I'll tilt it up towards the bass heads to try to pick up a tiny bit more bass sound.
That's interesting. And obviously you have to find that middle ground. And I just bring the side thing up because that's always Evan and Mai's like metric of how we're walking up in the lot from a back angle. And if I'm like, the snare line sounds great behind at a 45 degree, 30 yards away, it's like they're about to be clean as shit when we get up there.
Yeah.
Or we're like, we'll see. It sounds pretty rough right now, but we're at a weird angle. So
have you guys ever identified the cleanest era of drum corps? I think that would probably be a really good video. Like,
again,
we all have our memory.
We don't have the records, the high fidelity audio records for a lot of these eras to really truly know. I would probably argue it's not the current era.
The era we marched.
I would argue it's not the current era. I would probably the early 2000s.
I would argue the early to mid 2000s would be my argument for a couple reasons.
Clean.
It was like a happy marriage between like velocity of stroke plus like people talking about balance and touch. I was never taught in the 90s, but it seems like a lot of people who talked to me about that era who marched of it, it was all about uniformity and like
and rhythmic clarity.
Clarity.
And lots of reps.
Well, reps cure a lot of illnesses.
Reps will fix a lot, though. Reps will fix a lot.
I got something to tell you guys. You guys always talk about, how long warm-ups are now.
Oh, God, here we go.
You have no idea how it is. We would play like triplet diddle for like 30 minutes. There were no like
here's
two
the
reps
difference,
and
Robert.
stop.
You might play triplet diddle for 30 minutes, but the one rep of the exercise, it's not about playing a 5-minute long exercise. It's triplet diddle was probably 15 seconds long. You just did it a million times. Now you're playing warm-ups where it's like, this thing is 4.5 minutes long, and it's like spans the rainbow of every hybrid rudiment ever thought of to put in your hands. And it's like, man, my hands are worn out by the time I get to the book.
Yeah, if you want to play triplet rolls for 30 minutes, I think that's fine. But if it takes you hours and hours and hours to figure out how to actually clean triplet rolls and wait.
But you got to remember, when you hear like certain stuff, you know exactly which line that is from wherever you're at. You'd be like, oh, that's such and such line.
I'm sure. Well, I feel like I could argue that with the 90s. Like if you put on an audio recording, it was like check it. I was like, oh, BD shopping spree. Here we go. Like
a lot of it back then, like in the 80s too. was tuning. You could tell what line
That's very.
what
I
line it
believe
was
that.
by the tuning. Like Phantom had distinct tuning, Bridgman had distinct tuning, BD. All the West Coast lines were cranked. Those drums were cranked. East Coast lines, maybe not so much.
You know the spin keys that are ubiquitous now. I during our era is when those got invented, right? Because you needed to lengthen the top of the thing in order for the keys to work with the new heads. So like the invention of the flam head necessitated that, right? The worst thing that ever happened in '94 after we won, Yamaha gave every member a spin key. So all of a sudden we all had keys, right? So '95 it was just like whenever nobody was looking, we would give it a little touch up. So those heads were reefed, as we called them back then.
Oh yeah, and then back then too, it was like when a head would pull or bust, you save the hoop, and then you would like double or triple hoop, so you can get more crank in the drum. No, I swear that was a thing. You know, that was a
Phenomenal.
thing.
That's awesome.
I want to put out there too. Like I'm all for drumline identity, knowing who a sound is as you walk up to the lot or whatever. Who's over there? Who's over there? The beautiful thing about this activity is there's a million ways to skin the cat. There's been plenty of people that have tuned differently, approached warm-ups differently, written books differently, and it all can work. That's one of the beautiful things about this to me. There's no right answer. There's many different ways to achieve excellence and greatness, which is super cool. So I'm not just like crapping on one way or another. I'm just kind of...
I think the best thing that anybody who's teaching in this activity can do is let go of the notion of what you're teaching being the right way,
right?
Or like and implicit in that is that other ways are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything, all the info you have is just a toolbox, right? To make it sound the way ultimately the designers are asking you to make it sound, right? The whole thing of like, you can have preferences, but what's the point, right? The point is not to be like, here's the right way. Listen, see, it's cleaner. It's more balanced if we use this particular approach or anything like that. To me, that's like a tiny bit misguided, right? There's a level above that, which is we're trying to make the show, the ensemble sound. Mm-hmm. We're trying to bring that to life, So if you're stubbornly doing something that's working against that, like why? Just because it's the right way, right?
People say, well, that's the way we've always done it. I'm like, well, I don't like that answer either.
Some people don't consider a lot the core that you're writing for or you're developing a drum line to perform with can also dictate how you might need to tune the drums, depending on where the battery's going to be a lot. How dense of a book are you writing to match what kind of horn book that core is playing? That was something Colin pointed out to us that I don't know about you, Evan, but I'd never really thought of in terms of, he was like, we have to tune for a shorter sound because I have to write a certain density and volume of notes to be heard within this horn line the way the horn book is orchestrated and arranged. And so we kind of are required to still be heard to do it this way. So there's other requirements beyond
how they tune those Yamaha drums in Boston. We were roasting them.
Yeah.
Like,
well, have you guys noticed how different Blue Coat's battery sounded this year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and that is a show specific thing. It's them, this was a conversation we had multiple times during the year with their staff because it stuck out to me so much that I went up to Roger and I was literally like, do you remember those heads you guys used in 22? Like those were like amazing, like it was so crispy and bright sounding. And he was like, and that was perfect for that show, for that soundscape.
Yeah.
But this year's soundscape is different, And so what I liked, regardless of how successful or not you thought they were being, the idea that they are, sort of engaging in a little bit more mastery over the sound that they're producing.
Right.
If they have to mess with their approach, you notice like they played a little bit differently this year too.
Right.
It was a little bit of a heavier kind of like digging in kind of sound than normally, you've gotten with previous years. To me, that's great. That's showing that you aren't good at only doing it one way.
You can adapt. You're moldable.
Right.
You can adjust. Yep.
Because we need the show to sound good.
Exactly.
The whole show.
Were they on
Isn't
Yamaha still in 22?
Yeah,
Okay, so last 23 was the first Tama year, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's an interesting concept, though, George. I hadn't honestly considered that after saying what I said about what Colin told us about the way they tune, it makes perfect sense that you would make different head choices for the quads, for the basses, for the snares. How low or high, or how short or long of a sound do you need? Even adjusting the approach to playing the snare drum to get a darker sound versus a brighter, more open sound. That's all
Just look
stuff that
at,
people really need to consider and think about.
Look at the choice that Boston used for bass drum size. I mean, the top two were both. I want to say they were both 20-inch.
Well, here's
Were they
what's
the same
funny.
size.
Yeah, I
So-
want
so-
to. I want to say that because, and I'll say this because, sorry, George, real quick. I'll say that because, like, when I filmed them prelims, bass 2 popped ahead, so the bass 1 took his drum, moved it down, and they had a spare like 18-inch drum that they put out so they could finish the lot
Wow.
while they changed heads.
I literally texted Goots either yesterday or the day before asking him this exact question, and he laughed because he said ever since they did their Vic Firth Learn the Music video in like 18, and they had asked them, I think it has to do with the fact that they muffle the outside. So the muffling in relationship to like the logos looks the same on like the top 4 drums. So it makes the drums all look the same size. And people were asking like, are you guys doubling up on the sizes? And their joke was, no, we're using 30-inch drums all the way down. They're just all 30-inch drums. I asked Goots this year because I watched a video, and he told me that he actually gave me the sizes, but they were just 2 inches apart, like 20, 22, 24,
Okay.
26, and then
Yeah.
like 30, I think, something like that.
But I want to say their top wasn't an 18 for sure. I'm probably wrong though. Who knows? I'm old.
Well,
I wear glasses.
I
Someone
remember
from
too,
Boston
like,
let us know in the comments. Somebody has to know on YouTube.
you all talking about that, like tuning to the show, reminded me, like Rhythm X a while back, they made a post on their Instagram, the quads, like they posted their tuning schemes from 2018 to 2024, and there's minor alterations to all of them that fit within the show.
Yeah.
And I just went and looked it up, and he's like, yeah, 2023, we raised drum 2 by a half step because we had this long roll in the opener and it just wasn't speaking, so we needed to bump it up, and like just things like that. So then you fit all the drums to the show. It's just like that next level of like how nuanced can we get with this product, which is sweet.
Yeah.
When we
yeah, I
were
mean-
in, I was going
Go
to say
ahead,
when we were in the Midwest, we stopped and we saw a Crown rehearsal, and they were rehearsing in the stadium. I forget what city was that.
I was in Muncie. I was in that
No, not
stadium. in
Muncie.
Muncie.
No, not Muncie. It was.
Oh,
after.
was it oh yeah.
When
Was
they
it
had all
the
the kids,
Nets?
when they had all the like high school kids there.
Y'all went
Anyways.
to Illinois afterwards.
Yeah. Well, they were rehearsing, and so we're in there, and I'm like, man, their bass is. You can really hear the top bass from, was sounding really good. So I asked, I said, hey, what are you doing tuning wise for that? And they said that remember I was telling you about double hooping, like the snares. Well, they double hoop like the top bass so they can get more crank out of it.
Yeah.
And it definitely, you could hear it from the stands as opposed to. That's one thing I like to listen for is if you could hear the top drums from the stands.
I mean, I think at the minimum, right? Clarity needs to happen, right?
Of
So
course, of course.
everywhere you are supposed to
It's your
Thumbs
thumbs up bubble.
thumbs up to clarity.
get another bubble. Clarity, like, but the funny thing is like when you actually get in the stadium and you listen to shows, how often are you like, I can't hear the battery, or I can hear the snares, but I can't really hear the tenors, and I can't really hear the basses. Like I know something great is happening, but I can't really hear them. That is where I'm like, why wouldn't you do everything possible to make sure that the notes are being heard the way you intended them to be
Right.
heard? Like once you get them into the action, why wouldn't every variable be at your disposal? Like
Oh yeah.
maybe we will, mix the tenor heads, right? And not use the same actual like model of head on every drum just because of,
Boston did that. Was it
right.
Boston?
On the 3-4,
Yeah.
they used
Yeah,
the
they had
Renaissance
different heads on 3-4.
Yeah. Like to me, that's like, I would rather groups did that than, really stubbornly stick to like, no. This is what we always do. And this is right. This is our tuning scheme. And I don't care what we're playing or what the show is. This is what we're going to stick to, or this approach,
Right.
that's the one where people's egos get just so like, they put so much value in like I teach the right way.
Especially with like just the accessories that are out there. I think it was the year that Broken City won. Was that 2019?
19, yeah.
They had those Evans heads on the Yamaha drums, but they had like the tuning dot or something, I think, that they put underneath the top head that Evans offers. And I was like, somebody told me that, and I was like, what is this? I didn't even know it was a thing. So I was like looking it up. I was like, there it is. But it had like such a unique sound in the snare line that year that I was like, what are they doing?
Do you think that adapting to the show's requirements is a newer development in the new, like that was that a thing in the 90s? Was that a thing in the early 2000s? Or did groups just be like, this is how we tune the snare drums, this is how we tune the bass drums? Like, do you think it's a newer thing? Or...
I think a lot of it has to do now is you have choices as far as heads go, at least snare wise.
True.
Back in the 90s, you had flam head or a flam head. That was it, Or there was like Premier made a Tendura head that was like really expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
there you go.
I think it's a everybody is clean. When everybody is clean, what's the difference? And things being, and I will say maybe to as like evidence, to support what you're saying, design is so much more important
way more
now.
involved.
Gets way more rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's sounding a certain way on top of being clean, right? Is maybe just that much more important.
A separator when you're just splitting hairs, there's got to be some separators somewhere.
I think. Go ahead, George.
I was just going to say, and that may be why it's primarily the really elite groups that are obsessed with it.
Yeah,
that are really fine tuning it.
Here's something to think about too. That I was talking with somebody before, and they were telling me who had marched back then with us. I'm not going to name names, but they marched back then with us, and I'm like, and teach now. I'm like, hey, what's the difference now and then? And the way he broke it down was think about it like this: the era when we marched, the center snare was like the lead stick, and then the talent would kind of trickle to the ends. Not I'm not trying to knock the end snares by it at all, but then he said nowadays it's like you have 9 center snares because the talent is just that much better.
We've talked about that a lot. Even thinking back just 12 years ago to my age out, or it would have been 13 for Evan, or with same era. I'm sure the competition to make the Bluecoats now, or make the Cavaliers now, or Blue Devils now is astronomically higher than the competition that showed up at camps, even when Evan and I were marching. Like it was almost like once you, like I had marched Blue Stars already and Rhythm X when I showed up to Bluecoats. I could look around the room the first camp and be like, all right, there's like 6 or 7 people here that can legitimately make this group. Now I guarantee when you show up, it's like, all right, there's like 20 at this first 1 November camp. Like I'm sure the competition is way higher now. The average,
I feel like too, you used to hear stories of
up.
like, people who like, yeah, I showed up to like a Lone Star or a Skyriders or a Dutch Boy camp, and I'd never played drums before, and they like put me in the front ensemble. Then the next year I was on the snare line or something.
Or they'd cut someone and they would just keep showing up. And like, all right, well, you got better since last month, and we need a guy, so you're in. Take the end spot.
Yeah, I know a guy that marched BD 87. Well, 87 through like 89. 87, he was in the pit. He never had played drums or anything before. He was in the pit. 88 and 89, he's in the snare line.
That's a story I heard about Eric Ward too. That Eric actually got cut from cadets and just kept showing up to camp, and like just kept coming back. They're like, no, you're cut. And he just kept coming back. And he came to spring training, and he was like, all right.
Eric's roommate at Moorhead, the guy that taught me to drum originally, Damon Smith, literally told me when I was first auditioning, I got cut from Bluecoats in 09. Had no business being at the 09 Bluecoats. 17-year-old out of high school, never marched anything but high school. No business being there. They cut me in November, understandably. And I called him on the way home. He's like, just go back next month. Just show up. Just keep drumming, keep practicing what they told you, and just show up. And I'm like, I don't think that's how things work anymore. But it was just funny. It's just a different time, different era.
Nowadays, because every corps does satellite camps.
Yep.
Like satellite auditions,
Mhm.
right? To cover various regions of the country, right? Do you guys remember when that started?
Maybe around our time, or
Yeah.
right after. Maybe a couple groups. I know Bluecoats in 12 had a California camp. One in December. And then maybe they might have had a Texas one that year too, but I don't think it was widespread. It might have just started to happen around 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
Evan, do you know if Crown did anything like that when you were
No,
marching?
they never did. They never did anything like that. I do remember Bluecoats starting that in like 2011 because Mike
Mhm.
Jackson was in there.
Yep.
And they did like a California camp, but it was mostly like it was only in December, and then everybody had to come in January or whatever. But yeah, now it's super prevalent just because also I think the staffs are so transient and like just like, well, we teach in this area, so we want to recruit the kids from our area. So
Do we want to talk about that? Is that a good segue?
I think that might be a
into-
perfect segue. I don't know where you're going, but please grab it, take hold of it, and run.
No, I
So-
mean just transient. We are in like literally the period right now
oh,
where
I see what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude,
Where-
yeah, it's almost like a what can you do for me like immediately
Yeah.
type
Nope.
thing. I am happy to see, their staff announcements being made. I am excited to see like some fresh arrangers getting a shot. I think that, Tyler Sammons and Matt Penland at Phantom were kind of a good marketing tool for that. Like Phantom was like, hey, they've been writing together for a little while and like they had some success at Music City Drum Corps. Like we're going to give them a shot. And like year 2 for them was fantastic. So it'll be interesting to see what like, Joe Hobbs and Cliff Walker put together at Crown. I'm like tiptoeing around this topic because I know there's a bunch of stuff that I don't want to say because corps haven't made.
We're
their
walking on
announcements yet.
eggshells right now. Tread lightly.
I'm trying to think
Just
who's
so
been
people know, it's like what's the date today?
September
September 4th.
September 4th, and like Crown is the only one that's announced. Oh, and Blue
which is
Stars.
crazy.
Blue
And Blue
Stars,
Stars.
too. Blue Stars.
Yeah.
Blue Stars, yeah, Andrew Marquardt.
So
I know
who are we waiting on? We're still waiting for Mandarins.
Mandarins.
We're still waiting for Troopers.
Yep. Well, Troopers have made some announcements on the Fish team.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think Troopers are going to make any changes.
Yeah.
in the
No.
production realm.
Wait,
I'll
who am I
I'll be
forgetting?
surprised.
No, I don't think
Are
so
Scouts
either.
going to do anything? Were there
No, I don't
rumors
know.
that Scouts were going to do anything?
I
we
think
know
so.
about Cavies.
Yeah. Well, there's a crap ton of changes happening at Cavaliers.
I mean,
like,
there's just so many changes everywhere. Cause,
yeah, it's just
And
it's
then
musical
because-
chairs.
because of the rumor, like I said Troopers, because I know that they've got rid of like the Vid staff, and then they announced, and then who knows?
So-
It's just crazy.
So here's my question. My question is because it's easy for us to get caught up in like the sort of excitement of new, like this new staff or this new designer, what's that going to look like, right? And it gets us all excited. But do you guys have a perspective at all on like, because it's such a double-edged sword, right? Right after finals, right? Right after the sort of bliss of the season ending, immediately you start to hear about, oh no, these people are getting fired,
yeah.
right? And a lot of us are friends with those people,
Yeah.
and then you're like, why did they get fired? Like, I feel like this year, some groups made changes that were a little bit like head scratchers from the outside. We're not
true.
there internally, but from the outside, we're like, that didn't seem obvious, right?
No.
That was going
Yeah.
to happen.
Get you
and then
stirred up on the inside,
Yeah.
and then the sort of point that I made to Rob, like when we first started hearing about this stuff, especially about the Crown thing, the Mandarins thing, right, was where do those kids go? It's like what Crown does, is really specific, or what Crown has done these last couple of years is really specific, right? And the same question was asked of the Crown kids that were there when Travis and Dan were there, right? Like, where are they going to go? Where's their,
Buccaneers.
right? Where is their home? Right. And like people, I would ask that people not get insensitive to that, because for a lot of those kids, these designers that are, and these teams that are being let go are often at the dream group for a lot of these performers. And they've worked years to even just get the shot at marching with them. And now, like, they have options to go other places, but they're not going to, they've lost something, right? They're not going to get, that Mike Jackson, Kevin Shaw, Jared Andrews, the entire team. There's no place to go during the summer to get that experience,
I think that this offloading to this summer is just a great reminder that it's not just about teaching the kids.
Yeah.
It's
That's
about
a very
competition.
good point. Very valid.
In a lot of these groups that are making changes are ones that are in finals.
Yep.
Finishing just outside of a medal, or Trooper's case, it was the best finish in core history.
Yeah, that's the big confusing
And then you
one
go
to
over
me.
your drill rider. And I'm
That's
like,
the big
because
confusing
it
one
was
to
the-
me. It's like,
yeah.
we're the best we've ever been. Change everything. It's like,
Yeah.
well, really? But again,
Or you
like
know-
you said, George, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know
know.
what
And that's
arguments
the-
were happening,
Yeah.
debates,
disagreements.
yeah, creative
Right.
differences.
If it's a dysfunctional situation,
Mm-hmm.
then that explains a lot,
Right.
But from the outside, I mean, where are we going first, right? We're looking for competitive evidence,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're looking for, and that's why some of these things didn't make sense. The one thing I will say about the Mandarins crew, which is basically like the Monarch crew plus some other people, like some Atlantic Quest people and stuff like that, was I feel like there was like I don't want to say like a difference in values and like what they valued, but I always really appreciated what Ben and Taha and that whole crew, like not just what they produced, but I almost more appreciated how they produced it and the environment.
I appreciated the identity that they made for that line.
But it's like it was
Very
such
unique
a
identity.
it was such a enriching environment, and I feel like that's why the kids stayed loyal to them, the performers that came back year after year to Mandarins while they were there, and the ones that keep showing up to Monarch, right? They could go other places and probably get more competitive success, but those guys created a home that was very specific, that gave the kids something more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember during the summer sort of having, like, I remember talking to them in San Antonio, right? And they were getting beat up by the judges a little bit, right? Leading up to that. And for me, I was like, it's such a shame that what's going on competitively is spoiling what they're doing because of what they value, right? In terms of the overall experience. Those guys will land on their feet.
Yeah.
They'll end up somewhere. They'll be fine.
Right.
What
But-
you're talking about too also kind of perplexes me, and you guys can probably touch on this too, and we'll bounce back and forth. I do want to go back to like what you said about some of those kids like having an experience and wanting to stay with a group rather than, even if there's like a kind of clear line of like where you would probably go to next as far as like instructors and designers. But like, it always perplexes me as to like what gravitates eyeballs and like what gravitates content. Like, I feel like we produce content sometimes they're like, man, this was like a great podcast, this great conversation. Like maybe 10 people of you look at this, maybe 100 people look at this. And, we want to give flowers and like conversation to like independent open groups and scholastic groups and this and that. And then we produce that content and we just feel like nobody cares.
Nobody watch. Not that nobody cares, just nobody.
So like you're
clickbait
talking
is a
about
thing.
mandarins and like how great they were and like like they're kind of getting like beat down competitively, but like it's still like a game of tenths. Like they're
Mhm.
finishing like I don't know 10th, 9th, 8th. I don't know where they finished in percussion, but
Yeah.
it's still so close to greatness that you're
Mhm.
just like it's still great though.
It's
Um,
funny that you talk about like making stuff and only getting a handful of views. George and I talk about that all the time.
This is
Like,
we
for
have a
me-
running joke.
Yeah, like we really love something. Oh, I love this video. It's a shame nobody's gonna watch it. Like an example I'll give, and I'll give a shout out to the Academy Drumline. I really liked what they had going on this year.
Yeah,
That was
they
like
were-
one of my
we were fans.
funnest thing. Yeah, one of my funnest lines to film, and I was excited to film them all year. But I know that they're not going to get the views like some other lines. But I loved them. Go watch the Academy; they were great.
Well,
yeah, they were great.
we talk about the middle ground or the average of the activity getting so much better now. Like your 8th place group is so much better than the 8th place group was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's just, you can't even argue it. But still, people have this mindset of what content they want to consume or what groups they want to go watch are just Blue Devils, Boston, Cadets, RIP, Crown, like all this stuff. They only care, like we see it in the video views. When we do our reactions, you guys see it when you film it. It's like, man, that Blue Stars line was really good. But half the people are going to just pass over the video in their suggested videos and never check it out or never take the time to go watch them. And it's like, people need to open their eyes a little more. The joke between Evan and I is, there's Blue Devils in the title of this video. It's going to get twice as many views as anything else we uploaded all season. And it's true. And it's just the Blue Devils name just gets people click on it. And the Blue Devils are great. You should watch the Blue Devils for sure. But open your eyes to the group that won Independent Open in WGI. The group that finished 12th and snuck into finals. Like, go watch Spirit. Spirit was fun to watch this summer.
I will say that.
One of my
Go
favorite
ahead,
groups
George.
this year. I was just going to say
Spirit,
one of my favorite groups this year, Spirit. Go ahead.
I will say, Robert, that Q2 video on TikTok did blow up.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was great because hey, those guys were fun to watch. Ask George; he'll
were
tell you
good.
how- Before I got there, I'm like, dude, I got to get Q2. I got to get Q2. Like
They
for me,
were
another
good.
drum line that doesn't get enough love is the Colts. The
Dude.
last few years, they play clean and I like the vibe they got going on, but they're not getting the views like other groups, and it's a shame because they'll go out and they'll beat some people that they don't normally beat. And
Right.
people will be like, "How are the Colts beating them?" Well, go watch
It's
the
like,
videos
yeah,
and you'll see.
if you
know?
clicked that video instead of kept scrolling looking for the Blue Devils or Vanguard video, you might know why the Colts beat that group.
That reminds me of a pet peeve of mine. Like, why are the Colts like go watch the video? It's like people who like will type questions on like Facebook, like, where do I go to find this? It's like, well, if you actually type that in the Google search bar, you get the same
you
answer.
would find it.
They- so if you just like go watch the Colts video instead of ask this question,
Right.
then you know why.
This is almost a perfect segue. Let's talk about this summer a little bit. Let's segue to just this season that ended a month ago. Honestly,
What about
I can't
the
believe it's
23.6 million views on the Cadets video?
Oh, on TikTok?
Oh,
Oh man, dude, right? Hey, and that was like, I hate to use the term throwaway, but when we're filming, I'm like, we got done filming, and I'm there in the hot asphalt posting it, and George is like, why don't you wait? I'll give you my audio, and you'll have some good audio. I'm like, no, this is a throwaway video. You know what?
Yep.
Not
20
that many
million
people are gonna
views
watch it.
later.
Yeah, and then I'll tell you this real quick. I'll admit, I monetize to help pay for my trips and my equipment and stuff. It's
should.
not a
You
lot.
should.
But on TikTok, for a video to get monetized, it has to be a minute plus long.
Oh,
That video was 58 seconds.
oh my God. That's why they made it go viral, to motivate you. You were this close, Robert. You could have
Oh
made
my
all this
gosh.
money. We're going to make this
It's
go
funny.
viral to get you to make more videos and upload
Yeah.
it.
By the
Rough.
way, so that was San Antonio. It was 110
Mhm.
probably. We were out in a parking lot on the hot asphalt. I was the one that was out in the sun. Rob was chilling in the shade. And he was just like, "Oh, I'm just going to get some stuff for reels."
But George
And so
isn't
he-
bitter. George isn't bitter at all, guys.
I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all. You know why? Because those were some really good videos that we got from that rehearsal.
Yeah.
And here's the sort of when you think about like why we do this, like the thing we talked about earlier, right? When we hear that some performer that's currently in a group decided to audition for that group because we made a rehearsal video, right? That is, I mean, that is so much more, that is worth so much more than thousands of views or whatever. There's in 2019, I decided to film Carolina Crown's baseline, their subs, right? And one of their bass drummers, this girl Anne, she came up to me like a couple years later when she was marching RCC, and she was like, "Thank you for filming that lot, because it's literally the only video of us doing our subs." So really, I mean, and I think it's easier to let go because views are so poor these days. That's why we do it. We do it for those reasons, you know. And also like what gets views now is what goes viral now is such a roll of the dice that can't be a focus. Yeah. You know, just because like you don't know, you know?
Yeah, and then the problem is you get a video that goes viral, and then you're chasing the next viral video,
dude.
And it's I'll admit it, you know, it's cool to see a video go viral. It's like I got to do it again, but then
it's
the next
dopamine
the next
hit,
one's,
man.
you know,
we've all experienced it being content creators in any space. I know Evan and I have had videos do better than we thought, and it's like it motivates you. It kind of is like, holy shit, that it's a dopamine hit. The algorithm is a thing, and it's real.
Yeah,
go ahead, Evan.
Well, you were saying like, you know, I auditioned for this group. I don't think he would mind because I'm going to read this. I had a message sent to me on August 30th, so it was just 4 days ago. He said, and I don't mind. I don't think he'll mind, but Jacob Pear, who works with Atlanta Quest, so sorry if you do mind, but he said, did I ever mention the whole metronome thing at Atlanta Quest happened 2 years ago because of a video UTJ and Fantini did? You were reacting to 2018 Boston Crusaders, and TJ was like, we need one of those guys for Atlanta Quest. And so in 2023, after the callbacks, he went up to TJ and it's like, hey, you said you needed one. I'll do this job. And, you know, he crushed that responsibility for the group for 2023, 2024. And it's like, he's like, I don't know. And he sent me that 4 days ago. And I was just like, dude, that's awesome. Like, you know,
I didn't know
our metronome guy, Cameron Elliott in 2009 at Crown was just like, I mean, he was part of the group. Like we couldn't rehearse without him.
They really are, man. They're super important. The folks that do that job, it's just super necessary, super crucial and critical. So I didn't know. That's awesome. I didn't know that, Evan.
Now, George saying that reminded me of it, or Robert, or whoever said that. But yeah, go ahead, George.
I totally forgot what I was going to say.
All right, so we have two options at this point. We're at an impasse. We have a fork in the road. We can talk about your all's future in the recording space. Are you going to keep doing it? Are you going to, I mean, because we've talked about it a little bit this year in general, there seems like there's a lot of people uploading content now. When you're in the lot at finals, there were cameras and backpacks with hanging cameras over it, and it's just getting
VR
headset recordings happening. It's getting pretty saturated at this point. And I know, Robert, you and I talked about that for a minute in the finals week. Like, we can go that direction, or we can talk about your all's journeys for the summer.
Let's talk about the summer.
Okay, let's do the summer first then.
Well, real quick.
Yeah.
Shelf life on me doing this is maybe 5 years or less.
We said that. Didn't you say that 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Only because you uploaded your first video.
Only because I'm old. 2018.
You ain't that old.
George, do you remember what the first video you uploaded to your YouTube channel was?
Oh, man. No.
And October 28th of 2009, it was a Lakers pregame.
Oh, yeah. Go Lakers. That was like
back-to-back championships.
Hey.
Back-to-back championships. I was a season ticket holder, so I was there for the banner reveal. I think I uploaded that and like the clock ticking down and everybody storming the court in 2010. When we beat the Celtics. Yeah.
And then you took a hiatus until 2019 when you started uploading WGI content. Robert, do you remember your first video?
Oh man. If you're talking like regular videos, I know there's some. I don't know if they're accessible to anybody, but like I did one where I recreated the opening to the TV show What's Happening. I don't know if you haven't seen that, I'll send it to you. Maybe
I have
I'll
no
even
idea
make
what
it
that
public.
is, by the way.
I don't know if it's public. The oldest
Yeah.
public video was from April 6, 2002. You were uploading a bunch of VK 90s and RCC 94 videos and stuff.
Oh
and,
yeah, the years I was in, yeah.
yeah. And then
But
you took a hiatus until like from 13 to 17. So you
And then like 17 was probably an Ayala High School video.
probably Chino Hills
Yeah.
or something.
I know the
Yeah.
first like real winter drumline video that, and it still has getting a lot of views, is like RCC 2018 from the Damien High School show. It's like the
Oh yeah,
first show
that's
of the
that's
year.
a good video.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing, but you know, Sean Vega was cool enough. I'm like, hey, dude, go wherever you want. You know, there was like
That's
a bench
somebody
in
we
front
wanna
of the
talk
battery.
to.
Yeah,
That's somebody
Yeah.
we've talked about trying to talk to at some point.
we've wanted to talk to him for a while too. So
Some people are hard to nail down, but hopefully
Yeah.
one of us will get it to happen at some
Yeah.
point. But all right, so you
Summer.
want to go to this summer that just happened? You want to talk a little bit?
Yeah.
Because you guys were on the road a lot. You started like, thank God you two went out there in the Midwest the first week of the summer, because we would have had no videos to use if you two hadn't gone out there, because nobody uploaded shit, like besides you two, which was awesome. So I think, like, who did you like? Like, who progressed the most from start to finish? Like, wherever you all want to take it, from the very first time you all got on the road, first group you filmed, thoughts, impressions, overall opinions. I know that's very, very broad, but
Rob, you want to go?
you know, right off the bat, solid. Like beginning of the year, Boston. You know, they were just
Yeah.
like fire out the gate. Biggest improvements, Blue Coats and Madison Scouts, big time. You know,
dude, I agree with the Scouts, and I fully agree with the Bluecoats. We watched Bluecoats in Mason, first week of the season, I think that show was, because that's in our neck of the woods, and it was eyebrow raising initially, being completely transparent.
That was like a terrible first lot for them. I mean, they had a member of the snare line was sick.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like it was kind of a wild day. Getting into that high school at William Mason was kind of a huge CF. Like the traffic sucked, and like I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna have to like, we're gonna ignore this.
Call this a wash.
Yeah,
It was their first show. It was their first
It was the
lot
first show,
and
like
first
July
show.
5th. Yeah.
And I caught myself at least reading too much into it, and then I was like, wait, we give the Blue Devils a pass every year for coming out dirty. And like the show, after seeing the show, super complicated. Could fully understand. They just didn't get the time to clean shit yet. Like they literally had to work on ensemble timing and staging and getting this to line up with that. And like it made sense after I saw the show, and I just made myself like Evan said, forget that opinion. First show, forget it. And they made, every time I saw them week to week throughout the summer, massive strides in achievement. Massive.
We saw them in Whitewater, and you know the lot was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then you know I filmed the full ensemble, and George helped me. You know, George filmed from the front ensemble, and I had a stationary camera in the back because I'm the only one. I'm the whole like media crew. So you know I do the best I can with the tools that I got. So after I filmed them and I'm putting the video together, I'm listening to it, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, what a piece of art the whole combined packages. It was to the point where I text Tom Rarick, and I've never texted him before, but I had his number, and I text him. I'm like, hey man, I just want to tell you I'm editing this video, and the book you put together is just a piece of art, because it was just I love the entire package of that whole percussion ensemble.
It was very, very cool. Super cohesive.
You know what my takeaway was from seeing the early Bluecoats videos and then seeing them live? My mind immediately went to two groups. Rhythm X, when they say we don't put we don't work on what we do in the lot a lot, right? There's that whole thing. And then Blue Devils, where they famously will say, we don't spend a whole lot of rehearsal time just drumming by ourselves. We are always in like doing Viz and all of that. My takeaway was there was a decision to spend more time doing other things, right? Bluecoats is actually a group that I would say is kind of responsible for popularizing, making cool all of the stuff that happens in the lot, right? They play a lot of exercises. They're really long. They're super funky. They would do a lot of lot drill and all of that stuff. First show we saw them, they didn't do any lot drill. It was literally snares, tenors, basses, maybe made a form or two in the back. What happened to all the they what I saw was they had spent their time doing other things to prepare.
And like you said, this show sometimes calls for that. If your show is so intricate, you have to do that because the show is more important. Hell, when we had Scott Johnson on here, I would say half and half, 50% serious, 50% joking, kind of gave us shit basically and was like, it's not about the lot. He goes, I love what you guys do, but we, like you just said, they don't emphasize the lot. Like the show is what matters. What happens on the field, preparing for that is what counts. So,
and to their credit, the one thing I sort of noticed, this was very noticeable in 22 when like the whole battery was rookies, except for like one person. The biggest shock to all the members was how little they drummed, right?
Yeah.
And the positive that came out of that was they not tried harder, but they valued more the time they did get to drum.
There's
so
something to be said for that.
They got more out of it, right? So that's actually like an interesting byproduct of that kind of philosophy. Can we talk about Phantom?
Yeah.
And how they just sort of like, because we saw them early, we saw them that first week, and we went to one of their
Good job, Phantom. How does this happen? Like, what is?
I don't know.
How do I do this?
It's literally this, but I don't know what's going to trigger it.
I've tried to do this, but whatever.
Can we do like cards? I don't know.
Oh, be careful.
Yeah.
So we went. We were lucky enough because we know a lot of the people. Well, we know Steve. We had him on the podcast, and I'm personal friends with Jacob, Bass Tech. So we went to their rehearsal, and I think even before we saw them, like literally the first thing we saw was them doing subs, right? And we couldn't really tell a whole lot from that. But we went to lunch, and I told Cheese, I said, of the groups that are knocking on the door to being considered an elite percussion section, I felt like Phantom was the next group that was going to break into that. And it was totally because, number one, nobody could mistake their identity and like what they were going for. And they just, and this, again, this sort of gets into the who cares what's right or wrong? They were just not ambiguous at all, right? About here's what we're going to play and here's how we're going to play it. There was full buy-in, at least from the outside, it seemed, from the members. There was zero question from the staff about how do we teach this, right? This is all we have all the right staff people in place. And they just believed in what they were doing. And I'm like, they just needed that first year to get their bearings. A lot, a good amount of people came back, right? And then on top of that, I think everybody could argue that their overall show design was one that made you want to like it.
Yeah.
Like you were looking for
reasons. It was a great show. Yeah.
It had that intangible sort of quality about it.
Speaking of retention, Phantom aged out like 5 or 6 people from the entire percussion section.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I looked at Matt and Tyler and I said, congratulations on your Sanford next year. Like
that show reminded me of like the 2018 Babylon show. Just like there was something about it. Like it was simple, but yet sophisticated.
That's a good comparison.
I don't know. It's just like, it sucked you in.
I feel like there's, go ahead, Rob.
I was going to just say that show to me was fantastic with the PH. I liked it so much. We saw a rehearsal run in Rockford that when we flew home, the first thing I told my wife is, you got to watch Phantom Regiment. That their show's great. You're going to love it. And that's one of my favorite shows of the year.
Good to see you, Mrs. Coffee Shop. Watch Phantom Regiment.
Does your wife have a background in band? Or is she like not involved at all?
Actually, her and I, we met in RCC. She was in the color guard.
Okay.
And I was in the drumline. And now,
go Tigers.
To plug my beautiful wife as far as what she does. She volunteers.
Don't say it like that.
No. That sounded wrong. To give kudos to my beautiful wife.
There we go.
Oh
She
my
is
God.
the uniform. She is the uniform person for Pacific Crest for the last few years, and she loves being involved at the level that she is to do that. She's like my biggest supporter when I go on these trips. Without her, like none of these trips would be like what happened. And she drives me to the airport and she's there to pick me up.
She makes sure you have all the Uncrustables that you need.
Yep, and then she'll always tell me before I leave, make sure you don't leave anything in the lot because I'm notorious for leaving stuff in the lot. Just like mics and everything else.
You leave microphones? Come on, Robert.
Yeah, and she'll even go on the trip. She went to Texas with us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder how frustrating it is, or if designers find it frustrating so like with Phantom, for example, they had a show that again had that sort of intangible quality, right? Where when you put everything together, it just worked, right? And now all of a sudden, as somebody taking it in, you are looking for reasons to validate the good feeling that you have, right? Like you're looking for reasons to say like, this is why it's good design and all of that stuff. I wonder if it's frustrating for designers because they're so meticulous about like trying to create that, but sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
Where a show just works, right?
Yeah.
When you put it all together. And then the opposite also happens where you're like, this is not working.
And you're like,
at
on
all.
paper, this should be great. And just things aren't coming together. Yeah.
Now the hard part for them, I think, next season is how do you follow that show up? Because there's that expectation.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you just have to know that sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not. I mean, if you've been in the game for long enough, like especially these staffs that have like decades of like cohesiveness, like you think Blue Devils, like, all right, like they've been together for decades, most of them. And sometimes it's in and sometimes it's not, like I'm sure they're like banging their heads at some point. Like, well, we haven't won a Fred Sanford in 10 years. Like, not that they're trying to actively, talking to Scott and those people, they're always like, what's best for the core. But, they're probably like, all right. Like, I'm sure they're talking about.
Do you guys think that it's kind of a weird question. Do you guys think that staff people with the rule change, right? And like, how you have to, especially visually, stage your group, how you have to compose, right? For the fact that judges can't go out onto the field. Do you feel like staffs have to choose between winning those captions and winning the overall? Do you guys feel like those are two different things?
Now, I'd say be more inclined to say yes.
I do feel like you have to make,
sacrifices.
Yeah.
If it just,
I feel like that's evident with Crown over the last like 5 or 6 years. Like, I mean, that's my home team, like alumni of Crown. But sometimes I wonder if it's more about like the overall success or like single caption success. And I'll kind of leave it at that.
Unfortunately, I feel like with the new system, with the judges not in the field, especially, I mean, we talked to McIntosh last season after they won the Sanford, and we've talked to Josh, obviously, off the record plenty of times, and Adam Norris, another friend of ours, battery coordinator guy at Cavies, like, they all say we got really lucky with show design that put the battery in a lot of spots to be rewarded for what they were doing. And it wasn't necessarily a super intentional thing they've told us. It was just based on how the show developed and evolved conceptually and creatively. They got a little lucky. They told them we're going to have a lot of talent, but at the end of the day, it wasn't like yes, we're going to try to win drums. They kind of just, the stars aligned a little bit. They said from a show design standpoint. And I think
you have to be great and have just like that little bit of a lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the way the judge can't, it's more so with percussion, again, I feel like, than any other subcaption. They can't follow that drum line around on the field, so if you don't have everything staged to give you enough exposure, it's going to be an uphill battle, in my opinion.
Well, what's funny is, so that rule change, at least from what I remember, was driven by Viz, right? Yep. And the idea that judges were out there on the field and they were putting the kids at risk because visual had gotten so dangerous for them out there. It was so much more complicated, so much more high velocity. But now probably the biggest, one of the biggest sort of design, pieces of design that has been impacted by that rule change is Viz. Like you have to get the percussion section up front. It's almost become more old school because that's the way it used to.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're 100% right.
I wonder if we're going to do the drum to drum.
Right. I wonder if they anticipated that outcome.
It's almost like trying to help themselves, they hamstrung themselves.
Right.
I mean, how many shows have you seen the past few years where the drum line starts on the front sideline because they're like, well, we're going to get one of these out of the way right now.
Dude,
we're going to get one
2012,
of these
we started in the back far corner on the freaking field. We weren't anywhere close to the front of the field. And
2019, we didn't even start on the field. We were behind the sideline in the end zone.
Yeah, it definitely limits you. And P1, P2, problem solved. Let the judges at least go to the front hash, put the P2 judge in the box, take that last music analysis judge, make him a drum judge in the box to view the whole package, and let the guy on the field or girl in the field go all the way out to the front hash. Because there's plenty of moments where I've seen Jeff Brooks, Lightsky, whoever, the drum line's off to the side a little bit. There's nobody in their way, and they're like looking back at the front like, can I go farther? Let me get closer. They're not putting anybody at risk. Extend that leash a little bit, please. But
getting back to the summer, we saw Cavaliers, admittedly, when we first saw them, it was in Muncie. They admittedly had like not a great lot that day.
I was there. I can second that.
The difference in 1 week between them there and them I filmed them in Rockford was incredible.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like that staff, I remember when do you guys remember 2 years ago when they it was 22 when everybody got COVID, the whole corps got COVID.
Right.
And it basically, they lost a week of rehearsal early season. I always said about that group, if that line had another week, if they were able to get back, they would be they were on their way to something really great. That group, that educational staff is so good.
They've got it dialed in, man. They know how to clean. It's wild.
If it literally, as far as other groups competitively with them, thank goodness these sort of outside forces, things make life difficult for them, because left to their own devices, just like a normal average season, you're going to have to beat them. At least execution wise, in terms of the sound that they separate from design.
Well, we said that early on. We were like, every time we mentioned anything about how the season would wrap up, we were always like, well, we know the Cavaliers are going to be clean. We know they're going to play clean. They're going to play great tap fives. It's wild. The staff has it dialed in, and we reacted to them after the season because the way things lined up, we had to wait till after the season. We wanted to do a more recent video and stuff. While watching that, Evan and I both basically were like, this might be the best 8th place drum line I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't perfect, but it was probably the best 8th place drum line I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. While we're talking about the summer too, let's not forget Crown. They were really good.
Yes.
Full ensemble. They're another one, full ensemble. When you put the front ensemble and the battery together, fantastic musical package.
And just with the horn line too, that opening thing with the snares and the trumpets, the da-da, 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 there's all that stuff. I was like, yeah, this sounds sweet.
They're another group that cleaned up a lot.
Georgia thought that show was going to do better than what it ended up doing at the beginning. We were watching it, yeah.
Overall, because when we saw them do a clinic inside the stadium with everybody, what jumped out at me was they put so much thought into hearing. You're going to hear everything they want you to hear when they want you to hear it. All of that was super planned out and successful.
Right.
Whatever the judges thought beyond that, right? But they had ticked that box off in my opinion, honestly better than a lot of other groups, and that's why I thought they would do better.
They were
Were they
one
in
of those
fourth?
groups that cleaned up more than almost anybody else. They were one of those groups that went from square 2 to square 8 by the end of the season. Their progression was cool to watch from a clarity standpoint.
You know what? To me, what was weird is like the scoring at the beginning of the season and just at the end was like somewhere in between. It just got like flipped between them for a lot of drum lines. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's like I scratch my head. It's like, how did like let's take Crown for example. I thought that the line was better than or percussion was better than what they finished. But then again, who do you put them above? That's
Right.
That's where it starts to get dicey. It's
splitting
like
hairs, yeah.
they should have been better. It's like, all right, above who? What do you reorder?
Yeah. Dude, all the way down is like even like down is 16th place. All those the academy, the
Crossman,
Spirit, Crossman, yeah. And it's like, dude,
they're all good.
It's got to be rough. It's got to be tough, dude. The Colts, Colts was right on Phantom's Hill a week before finals, and then all of a sudden they're like way back. It's like, okay, how did that happen? I don't know. Thank God I'm not a judge.
Yeah,
I don't want their job.
We're over here like it's easy to pass out criticism, but then it's like, all right, well, you're on the hot seat. What are you doing? You got to go on record.
Something I really like is, well, and again, like sort of in our travels, and because we're friendly, we have friends in all of these groups, so we get like a tiny bit more access. But the thing that I really liked about, and because we saw Crown so much this year, is people go, oh, it's just Broken City Outdoor. And it's not. Very specifically because of Jared Andrews.
That is the wild card in there, yeah.
Like he brings something, and like let's sort of set aside that he's a really good teacher, like technically, right? As evidenced by his time at Blue Devils and RCC, like during those lines, were
Blue
incredible.
Devils drum trophy was 2015, and wasn't that Jared's last year at the Blue Devils teaching?
I think so.
Just saying.
But the way he brought like hey guys, are we taking this as seriously as we should? Like, are we taking it too seriously? Like, what is like he? I mean, because I posted this one, thing where he went out of his way in the finals lot to sort of like, hey guys, let's enjoy this, right? Because we're celebrating. These are the last couple of moments that these guys are going to get to perform together, and they've worked so hard for these moments. But I feel like him bringing that and like having the ability to point that out to people, right, kind of keeps everybody very grounded and their head in the right place. I'm sure he did that in ways that we didn't get to see a million times with the performers, right? Making sure that the grind wasn't grinding them down, that they always kept a good perspective and were focused on healthy things throughout the summer. So shout out to Jared.
I saw enough of that. I taught 2 high school falls here in Louisville at a high school with him, and I just did like percussion sectional day on Tuesday evenings and some show Saturdays. He's very good at this part of it.
Yeah.
Managing this part of the activity, Jared's very good at. So
he's got such a diverse dichotomy of experience in the activity.
He really does.
Too. Like obviously he ended up aging out at BD in the 05 quad line, which was legendary. But taught RCC and Blue Devils. But before that, he's a kid from Shelby County, Kentucky here, and he marched 3 years at cadets, 02, 03, 04, where I'm sure he just like saw the opposite end of like what it is to just like get beat down during the summer. Then you go to Blue Devils, so it's like, how can we marriage these two concepts together to where we're like not over stressing, but also like not overhyping. So
yeah.
He seems. I don't know if this is the right word. He seems very caring to me about the member experience and just everything.
He is
like honest, caring person.
Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of the Blue Devils, sorry, go ahead, George.
Go ahead.
No.
No.
Speaking of Blue Devils, What did you all think of them this summer? We haven't really talked in detail about. We talked about Phantom, talked about Crown, talked about Boston a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they played some hard shit, and it just didn't quite get there.
Yeah,
They were
and go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say they were my pick to win high percussion at the beginning
I
of the
think
year.
I actually said that, Evan, in our speculation or early season. I
Yeah.
said, if they clean this, they're my pick for the drum trophy.
And my reasoning was they've been like on the verge the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, they were drumming a lot more this year than they were in previous years.
Oh, they were playing a lot of
Yeah,
stuff, dense, hard stuff.
I got to see them in Houston, and I really liked what they had going on.
Yeah, my take on BD has been that for the longest time, how they score points is by doing difficult things and making sure that you know that they were difficult,
Mm-hmm.
right? So maybe you won't, like have a great time in terms of like the music sounding really good to you, right? Like you really liking the way the beats sound. But you're going to look at it and go, wow, that's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
They're very good at making it obvious it's difficult. They're very good at like even the less educated viewer is going to watch it and go, that had to be hard.
Like that's their first reaction, right? Like
Yes.
that's their first sort of instinct. And I feel like they go that, other groups may do it differently. This is a choice we're making in terms of like how we're going to score points, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing I will say about this year's line in particular, I think it's the best they've sounded. Like when you hear them, when I heard them live, I saw them in Houston, and I filmed them in like prelims or semis. Literally, just in terms of sound that they were producing, best balanced, best sounding as far as touch, line, playing all that hard stuff than they've had for a while. Those System Blue drums, by the way, didn't do them any favors for the longest time.
We said that.
Right?
A lot of people said that. Very true.
But so I think they're going to continue to get those new Ludwig drums dialed in as far as what they sound like. But I like the direction, that they've gone in terms of
That bass line and tenor line.
Yeah,
smoking.
I think they even brand showing you the difficulty like within the warm-ups. They do the sectional like flam exercise thing. Like the flam exercise for like the snares, it's like, all right, it's flam, it's got some double flam drags, all right, it's great. But like watch the tenor split in the bass
tenor
split,
rounds.
like,
Yeah.
You're like, what is happening
Insane.
right now? They just
Crazy.
look like aliens moving around the drums. I'm like, no.
Real quick on System Blue, isn't it amazing that RCC won in 2018 playing on those drums?
That's a
Now you
good
think
point.
about it.
You
Imagine
don't
what
really
they
need
sound like on like Ludwig.
You don't need
7,
the
4, and
projection.
4.
You don't need the projection for indoor that you do in drum corps, and that was a big issue with System
You
Blue.
can get away in it.
They just didn't
inside.
project like the other drum shells did and do.
They
So-
almost had a heads up on the drum change or the drum rule change with the judge coming off the field, because when they had those System Blue drums, they were having to stage all their percussion moments on the front sideline, or else you couldn't hear them.
Yeah.
So it's like,
They're
well,
ahead
we're
of the
going to put
game.
you up.
Funny enough, when we didn't get to see them live until I didn't get to see them live until San Antonio, but during that first week that we were out in the Midwest, like in the Chicago area, in the hotel room, we were like, has a video come out of this show or this line or whatever, right? And I remember being really pleasantly surprised by Spirit. And funny enough, it was the show first. It had that weird sort of children's book, Maurice Sendak kind of vibe to it. But then the whole like them feeling like the sort of baby Boston Crusaders, like when you actually just looked at the battery.
Yeah.
When I saw them in San Antonio, I was like, yeah. And like the reason I filmed them was because I knew Marshall, one of the bass techs. He's a kid that marched Bluecoats bass a couple of years ago. So I knew him and I saw him and I was like, oh, who are you teaching? He's like, Spirit. I'm like, okay, I'll film them. And I'm really glad I did, because I'm very much, I don't know how they ended up competitively, but I'm very much buying what they're selling.
Yeah,
over there.
they're
So
doing
hopefully
the
that
right
continue
things.
to grow.
Speaking of San Antonio, I didn't really film anybody that I made up my mind after the last few years because it's
It's
just
so hot.
it's so hot. I filmed a couple groups and I went inside and I watched with my wife from the inside. But the way we picked our groups that we filmed was where we were parked, whereby they had some tents set up, and whatever groups were assigned to whatever tent was next to the car, that's who I ended up filming. So it was like Colts and Blue Knights, and my Blue Knights footage ended up being unusable from that day. So I had to film them like later, a few shows later in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but basically, Phantom and Spirit were my two sort of standout percussion sections of the year. Just in terms of like, I feel like both really took a step forward in a way that I like personally.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say, where other groups like Colts kind of built off success they had last season. Vanguard is Vanguard, Blue Devils are Blue Devils, the top group is the top. But like in terms of curveballs, I fully agree. Like Phantom was good last year, but they took it to the next level basically. And I didn't really see it coming that quickly. I thought that staff might get there eventually, but it was very abrupt. And Spirit, the same thing. Spirit way out of left field. But guys, we've been going for 90 minutes now, believe it or not.
Hey.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Vanguard yet. I was about to.
You know
go.
what?
Speaking
I
of
was just thinking
Vanguard,
about that.
Speaking of Vanguard,
Let's go,
dude. At the beginning of the season, how are the judges like putting the? I don't know. We have theories that we've talked about, but it was like,
do tell.
dude. They were like 5th or 6th at like the Atlanta regional.
They were kind of low at points, and we were kind of like, well, are they just stagnating, or did they plateau and they haven't gotten any better since the first week? And then I saw more videos from later, and I was like, no, they're freaking good. This is
it not translating to the field?
There is still a rim shot that is ringing in San Antonio from one of their snare features because it was so crisp and incredible. That show in San Antonio was incredible. I never see shows from the inside, but I saw that from the inside, and I couldn't believe how good they were.
I think like I had this joke with Rob that essentially the judges were going to get tired of what Rennick was doing. The Rennicks together.
The execution's too good.
Well, because we remember Tom Float, and Tom won 4 drum titles in a row, and then went his remaining years at Blue Devils continued to produce really amazing percussion sections, right? That were some of our favorites of all time, and didn't even have close to the same competitive success. And it kind of made you go like, well, a year ago you really loved this, but this year it's not working for you. And my theory was that, and I know that a lot of early comments from people were like, this sounds like 2018, like this book sounds a lot like 2018. Like are they just recycling? Are they just writing to a formula or whatever? By the end, that obviously proved not to be true and stuff. But I feel like, and like Phantom, like there was that one show that Phantom beat them in percussion, like not that far away from the end of the season.
Yeah.
So it just brought to light the whole, like, the subjective side of the judging thing. Like, what exactly are they rewarding? Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. We can just, if we're the cleanest, we're good, which ended up being like, if our orchestration is just amazing, we're good. Okay.
I mean, that left side of the box, I know that like DCI and the judges will tell you that there's like, they say it's not like a bar line. Like, you see it, it's not a direct cutoff, but like they're hyphenated, or they're like a semicolon or whatever, like they're connected. I don't necessarily get that, but that content side of the box is just, it is gonna always be subjective to a degree. I mean, there's no way around it. Even like the results in general are subjective to a degree, unless you just want to go back to the tick system. But there could have been some of that, just like some fatigue of like, all right, who knows? But
yeah,
we'll never
yeah
know.
I just and I'll preface this with, Paul was one of my former teachers and all that, but to get slammed in the content like they were kind of getting slammed at the beginning of the year, it's like, I couldn't figure it. And then when I saw him in Denton, and I got a chance to film him, and I'm editing that video, I'm like, yeah, how is this getting slammed in content? I don't. But by the end of the season, it all kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, conspiracy? No.
By the
no
way,
conspiracy, but yeah.
Tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Boston for 3 years in a row winning the People's Champion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably
Like-
true. That's probably
I mean, that's
true.
that is a very formidable 3-year run
Yeah.
of lines that they've
But-
put out.
Boston has
Crown
had
the
the
Lock
love
Kings.
of the masses for a while now.
Dude, how about their battery books, man? It's just like, I always call them the hero book. They play the hero books, because if I was playing, that's the line I'd probably want to be in.
Yeah. It's got to
Yeah,
be fun. It's got to be fun.
Yeah,
They
real
get the-
quick, we were talking about Tom Flo earlier. If you guys are gonna ever do like react videos to old drum corps, do a react video to like 88 Blue Devils.
We did a through the years.
Yeah,
tribute
we
to
did
Tom Float.
I think was 88
Yeah.
in there? Did we do 88? I don't
Now
think
I
we
gotta
did.
look.
We'll
I'll
put it
look and
to
see.
we'll add it to our off-season docket to get us to WGI this year. We might check it out. We were also talking about we might explore the
One thing-
HBCU scene.
If HBCU is cool, but if you do 88 Blue Devils in their drum feature, if you watch, there's like a snare feature, and there's a cockroach. You see it on the
Yeah,
video.
oh, we
cockroach,
did- we used it. We did watch
We did
that.
that one.
and then he stops and he looks. Yeah,
We did watch
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
We saw the cockroach. Yeah, that was part of that video.
That snare line was so clean. The cockroach stops. He looks at the snares, and then when the snare feature is over, he started moving again.
Dude, yeah. So we did 88. And we also did. I can't remember what else we did in this one, but we did like a few of them. Just when Tom Float passed away, we're like, all right, we want to kind of pay like homage to like what he's done and
We
stuff.
did like 4 or 5 different groups of his, I think, in one video.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I
How
can't
great
wait.
is it? How great is it, by the way, the little Easter egg, Tom Float Easter eggs that people have sprinkled like throughout their shows,
Mhm.
and with the cadets, right? All the like everybody doing the cadets bass fish.
Yeah,
Like, sneaking that
there
into
was a
their
lot of
show.
that stuff.
dude. People
like-
doing the snare viz, the like tilt with the
Yeah.
sticks and stuff.
But
Yeah.
the that just speaks to like people's hearts being in the right places,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
and that whole community and like we're all in this together,
Yep.
kind of thing.
We're trying to beat each
Um,
other, but we're all in this together, like you said, despite
but this
competing
is
against one
yeah,
another.
it's like, but we all know how tough this is.
Yes.
This is really hard for all of us, and that is and at the end of the day, we're going to have these memories, and we're all growing up and learning how to be adults and all of that stuff. I think separate from our era that we grew up in, where it was a little bit more cutthroat and competitive and stuff like that, I really enjoy seeing that.
Mhm.
From groups currently.
Yep. It's very cool.
Here's a question I'm going to ask you guys. Did the judges get it right as
Ugh.
far as high percussion?
Putting this in the hot
Yes.
seat. I think so.
Yeah.
I do.
yeah.
I
I feel like too, if you do have access to tapes and like you hear some of the comments, most of the time, a lot of the shows kind of call themselves as
Yeah.
far as like
you'll hear it.
the outright. Maybe could there be like some like mix up 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5 like down the chain? Sure. But hearing some of the judge tapes, it's like, all right, this just makes sense.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
it made sense. So
Vanguard just they
the
played their way to it.
consistency,
They played
the
their way
clarity,
to it.
I mean,
I think the
yeah.
Bluecoats had the vehicle to win. Vanguard had the vehicle, obviously, to win. I think Boston had the vehicle to win. And in those situations, like we talk about on here all the time, we want it in the members' hands to decide who wins instead of the designers' hands. And I think this year was the epitome of there were probably 4 different groups that had the vehicles. And it really was in the members' hands of those groups of who was going to show up 3 nights in a row at the highest level to be able to do it. And
it may have been taken out of one group's hands on one night, but
yeah, we can talk
I
about that
honestly thought at the end it was going to be whoever placed second. If somebody placed second all 3 nights,
yeah,
and 1 and 3 flipped,
could have been.
that's whoever was second all 3 nights was going to end up winning.
Well, that's kind of what happened in 22 for Bluecoats, wasn't it?
They were second the first two
No.
nights and then one
They
final.
won finals
Yeah.
night 22.
2-2-1.
Okay, gotcha.
But and then one swapped. It wasn't like there wasn't
Yeah.
a consistent
Yes.
one the first
the
two
groups
nights.
around them flipped 1-3, 3-1, quarters
Yeah.
to semis. Yeah, so it was. I'm not going to argue with who won. Vanguard was absolutely great, and honestly, it was just
Do
an
you
overall.
all think the right group won?
Yeah, let's ask you the question.
Sure.
I think so. Yeah. I think Blue Coats really had a good chance to actually win. I would have loved to see Boston win because I love those guys, and they were just like we said, they're the people's champs.
Yeah,
And they were there. They was so close, and then but Vanguard just ended up doing it at the end, and
it's one of those years
you know-
where out of those three groups, nobody really could be mad if any of those three groups ended up winning. Boston,
100%.
Vanguard, Blue Coats. If any of those three took the trophy home, you couldn't sit there and be like, well, somebody was robbed. It's like, well, all three were great.
yeah, even Blue
Well,
Devils, Blue Devils would have won.
Yeah, if they would have gotten there, it would have been not confusing either.
I made the joke that I made the opposite point, which was like somebody was always going to be mad.
Well, someone's
Based on, like,
technically
based-
always mad, but
Exactly. Because it's like people are so like Boston's finally going to break through, or like, Vanguard's like, Vanguard people are like, how can this lose? I'm speaking mostly about people who argue about this stuff in the comments.
yeah,
Um,
the old
but
comment.
yeah, I mean, and the reality is like for how cutthroat it is to be, that sort of top 5 or 6 in terms of like elite percussion ensembles. The real winners are us, right?
Oh yeah.
Because we get so many really great, like I always make the point of like, give me more. Like I wish it was even more brutal, right?
Yeah.
Or like 1 through 8.
It's all phenomenal.
It could just be like any order,
The ordinals are just all over the place. Yeah, great,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yep.
The parody is fascinating, and I think too some of that, like you talked about, like Vanguard, like kind of fluctuating throughout the year. It made it more interesting down the road because you got in the finals week and you're like,
I mean, prelims, right? They lost by 2-10
yeah, like,
Yeah.
to Boston,
Who knows?
and you were like, oh, and then they semis they beat Boston by 1/10.
But Boston
They
was
were
still
still
in
down.
first because of the averages
still-
so far.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
they
I had
still
I
won.
had my spreadsheet working where like I had one thing on there where there was a 3-way tie. So it's like, all right, this could happen.
1980 DCI finals. It was like a 3-way tie, and I think they used general effect to pick the winner.
What? Like overall
percussion,
core
yeah.
score 3-way tie? Or
No.
percussion?
We're talking about percussion. It was
Okay.
like Spirit, Bridgman, and 2-7, if memory serves correct.
I have a spreadsheet for this. Just a second.
Yeah, Evan
Red
figured out a
Sanford
scenario
winners.
this year where there was
Um,
a way where we had a 3-way tie if the numbers played out on finals night between those three groups. It could have happened.
It may have been like 80 or something, or one of those Tom Float years too that they did that. But in 1991, there was a 3-way tie between Santa Clara Vanguard, Star, and Cavs.
Yeah.
So
88, I want to say there was a tie also between Garfield and Vanguard, and then Vanguard ended up winning because of GE.
Vanguard, ended up getting the trophy that year.
I
Yeah,
would
but
say-
if you go back and look at the final scores, I want to say there was a tie finals night.
With regards to 91, I would normally say I remember that. However, I do know for a fact that I was on my way home. I was driving home because we didn't make finals that year. So literally finals day, I was already on my way home.
13th place is the saddest place to be
Oh
in.
man, it was great.
I've been there.
What core?
That's why what's funny is
I was VK.
Oh, okay.
I hype-
Okay.
I hype the Colts, but deep down inside, I have this hatred for the Colts because of 1993, and them and the Glassmen knocked us out of final. So like Colts and the Glassmen, but
In 91 was the emergence of Blue Knights. That was like I feel like that was the first year they made finals, and so we got pushed out. I have Rob's thing. I have that about the Cavaliers because of 95, but we won't.
I don't know how to
we won't
read
go
this 1988 recap. There's 2 percussion scores. One's GE and one's performance. 14.8 plus 14.6 is 29.
Evan's building spreadsheets live on the recording.
And then
dude, then 88, like BD's line got slammed. It was that whole era, like 87 through 90, is just weird.
Yeah,
From
this
percussion-wise.
is all weird, but I have to go back and look. Anyway,
88 was weird too because they did a lottery draw for like when you're gonna go on. Like Blue Devils was undefeated all year, but finals week, and then there's
is that the year when they're pointed?
Yeah, there's a conspiracy. You see it on the video when they're pointing, picking the
He's
numbers.
like, no, we want that one.
Madison Scouts, one of the DCI officials points like, here, no, pick that number, and they ended up picking like to go on last.
Yeah, Scouts won that year.
That's funny.
Which is the Malagueña show, I think, which is a great show. But
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
But
Yeah.
But they chose. Was it winner?
I was just gonna say real quick before I forget because I have that short-term memory. I want to apologize to anybody in the lot that I've ever stood in front of or sat in front of when I'm moving, making videos. Like George is courteous. He's stationary the whole time, but I'm like that guy that I'm always walking around, and I feel bad. I try to apologize and like when I'm there, but if I ever cut anybody off, I'm sorry.
There you have it, folks.
Forgiveness.
Yep.
Oh man.
All right, fellas. I think we hit everything. I think it's been an hour and 45 minutes. Flew by. Always a blast to hang out, but I have to use the bathroom real bad. And
I was gonna say this is short compared to the ones that George and I.
100%.
I know
yeah.
you guys do marathons, but
You guys go hard.
it is after 11 here, and Evan and I have work tomorrow, so we can do.
What's
we need
work
to,
tomorrow?
We need to make this a
Tomorrow's
regular
Saturday.
thing.
What?
Yeah, Robert,
Tomorrow's
you're
Saturday.
retired.
Every day Saturday.
You're
Every day
retired.
Saturday.
We don't want to hear it,
That's
Robert.
right.
We need to make this more of a regular thing, though. We should do some reaction videos together too, like whether it's just all four of us, or we should plan some more of this to collaborate on some content.
I would love that because there's like a 20-year period I missed of drum corps from pretty much 97 through like 2013. Not 20 years, but there was a long segment.
Good chunk.
So there's like a lot of stuff I've never seen. Like 2012 Blue Coats. I know that line's epic. I would like to watch that. I know, dude. So many dudes that I know that I look up to now that instruct and stuff.
There's a
were in
lot
that
of
line,
people, whether they were marching or teaching that 2012 Coats line. It was Roger's first year at the Blue Coats. He was one of the 2 snare techs. There's a lot of members that were in that group that went on to teach and are still teaching around the activity. And yeah, there was
Jeremy Summers.
Yeah, Jeremy Summers was involved. Eric Shriver was still there. It was a weird overlap of transitionary period that kind of, I feel like, stars aligned a little bit in terms of.
All I know is like internally that line is looked up to so much that every year in Akron they try to recreate a photo that was taken.
Is that the photo in the back corner of the?
Yes.
They still do that.
Yeah, they still.
That's hilarious.
At least when I was there, it was like
I remember
Rob,
that day.
Go up there and try to recreate this photo.
I remember that. I remember that day vividly. It was a good time. All right, we have to wrap this up. We will make more content. Robert, George, appreciate your time immensely. Everybody else, comment, like, subscribe. Go subscribe to George Collins on YouTube. Subscribe to RBase 311, Robert's channel. Go join the Drum Corps Coffee Shop, whatever, all that stuff. Comment, like, subscribe, share the video. Facebook, Instagram, give us a follow there.
Hey,
Patreon.
real quick,
go ahead.
One last thing. Go donate to your favorite corps, or actually,
Yes.
better yet, go donate to the corps that you hate the most, so you ensure that they'll be around for you to hate on them
For you to
even
continue
more.
hating on. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we'll make the message here. Don't hit the join button. Don't go to Patreon for us. Donate to the drum corps to help keep them around. But if you want to buy a shirt, thumbs up for that as well. AgedOutPodcast.com. The biggest way, George wearing it, Evan wearing it. Aged Out Fundamentals, drum every day. Your hands will thank you in the long run. George,
That way
Robert,
you can get sorted from the sorting hat.
Yeah. Work on your hands with the fundamentals videos so Robert can put the sorting hat on your head and tell you to go to Velvet Nights. That's all I got, everybody. We'll see everybody in the next one.